Disrupt or get disrupted? That's a question which is crawled into almost every industry vertical today, be it a bank or insurance. The insurance industry is going through a major digital transformation across the globe, and Europe is no exception. Digital has challenged the status quo in all possible ways, be like connecting with the customers, onboarding them, processing their transaction in the back office, engaging them in all possible ways, almost everywhere. So this has become a very important question, and I'm glad we have Miss Oliwia over here, a senior analyst from Forrester Research. She can talk about this with us over here, and she'll be fielding some questions from our customers on this, and she'll also help provide some intelligent insights on the insurance industry. Okay, so let's get started, Oliwia. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. So changes in the insurance business landscape over the last few years is redrawing a lot of global economic boundaries, high uncertainty and insecurity. What do you like to say about that?
Yes, it certainly has been a very challenging time for insurers in the last few years. Ever since the financial crisis, European insurers in particular had 7 lean years. So between 2007 and 2014, gross written premiums largely stagnated. So that's become a bit better in the last couple of years. But in those challenging years, a lot of European insurers looked to global expansion to basically generate their growth. So for someone like AXA or Allianz, they generated a lot of growth in revenue through international sales. Now this is changing because of course countries like Russia, Brazil, China are slowing down or entering recession. So we don't know where future growth will come from. And of course there's also the uncertainty of the Brexit vote. We don't know what's going to happen to the EU passporting rule and whether UK-based insurers will be able to provide their services in other European countries without additional regulation. The economic environment isn't great either. We've got depressed bond yields, which means that it's much more difficult to generate growth on capital, and insurers might struggle to match their liabilities, particularly on life insurance policies sold earlier with guaranteed minimum payouts. And last but not least, we also have environmental challenges. So last year we had a lot of floods towards the end of the year in England and Ireland, and that basically generated insured losses of something like £1.3 billion and has severely affected operating profits of European insurers.
Alarming. So that means like digital has a lot to do.
Yes.
So if you talk about digital disruption, what does this mean to insurance business in today's world?
Digital disruption means that the way that insurers have engaged with customers, the way they sell their policies, the way they serve customers has really changed. So for a long time, insurance was insulated from digital disruption because of capital requirements and underwriting expertise. But this is now changing. Digital disruptors, software-driven startups are flooding into insurance. Some of them are focusing on manufacturing and selling insurance policies, but others are basically targeting the entire insurance value chain. So if you think of something like comparison engines, in the UK, a lot of consumers start their insurance purchase journey by looking at comparison websites and comparing prices. And this has really affected insurance profit margins because it has really driven prices down. But digital technologies is not just about the distribution channel. It's also about the way you can price and underwrite policies. It's about selling these policies, how you engage customers, and how you handle claims. Basically, this could change the competitive landscape of insurance significantly over the next few years.
So how are these industry players reacting to this digital disruption? How are they happening?
So they have a few choices, right? If they believe that this is really affecting them, they have to go and embark on digital insurance transformation, and this is quite difficult. And you also need to decide, how will you respond to some of these digital disruptors? Will you collaborate with them? Will you compete with them? Depending on the answer, your strategy, your digital strategy will be very different.
Can you tell us, like, how are the back-end processes of insurance companies going digital?
So if you think about it, a lot of customer journeys, let's think claims, are very complex processes that involve a lot of internal partners but also external partners. So you could be dealing with your underwriting colleagues, with customer service, call centers, with repair shops. And in order to deal with all of these partners, you need very, very good processes to coordinate that. So you need a very good workflow, you need a very sort of streamlined software environment so that all the employees feel empowered to help the customer and are not prevented from doing what's best for them. So it's a lot about agility, providing tools that are easy to use, simplifying, communicating with customers, making sure that you have this maybe single view of the customer and you know and you can alert them to what is happening throughout the process.
What do the insurers need to take care of today so that when these changes happen in the economy, how can they handle their processes?
There is a lot of uncertainty because, as I said earlier, we don't know what will happen to EU passporting rule, but we don't know also how regulation might change in the future. Insurance is a very regulated industry. That means that a lot of resources of insurance goes into meeting some of these regulatory requirements. If we suddenly have a very drastic change, more resources will need to go into that area. And of course, as we know, regulatory compliance is not a source of competitive differentiation. So customers might not see that. And for insurers, it's very important that they remain agile and can meet these regulatory obligations while still being able to channel some of the resources towards innovation and towards retaining that customer focus.
Okay. So how are these challenges faced by the CEO and CDO, like the chief digital officers today called of insurance companies, reacting?
There is a very big difference between the leaders and the laggards.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier the political, economic and environmental uncertainties that a lot of CEOs in particular face. That means that often they get distracted and maybe don't fully appreciate the challenges of digital transformation. Digital transformation requires significant resources. So if you don't channel resources in that way, nothing is going to happen. We've seen the emergence of chief digital officers in insurance companies in Europe in particular. A lot of these individuals come from outside of the insurance industry, but often they aren't empowered and often face a lot of resistance, internal resistance to change. So they have a very big challenge ahead of them to change both the culture and the technology platforms and the legacies within insurance.
What do you say? What are the top 3 priorities of these new world CDOs?
Well, hopefully they are starting with the thought that this is not about implementing one single software solution or one single platform. They need to start by drawing up a digital vision for the company, what it means in terms of digital customer experience, in terms of digital operational agility, because this is a wholesale change of how the company operates. So I would say the 3 top priorities that they need to keep in mind are customer focus, speed, and innovation. So all of this is really about how you deliver change faster that will benefit the customers.
Okay. So there's another important question where people are asking, like, are customer expectations different, and are there different customers with disparate demands?
I would certainly say that customers today are not how they used to be. So we have this new customer segment, we call them empowered customers. They have been empowered by digital tools. And the way they research, buy and engage with insurers is very, very different. So if you think about consumers adopting wearable devices, for example, or interacting with Amazon's Alexa, or even letting out their flats or an Airbnb, this affects how insurers can underwrite and price some of these risks. It affects how they can engage with customers. So they need to think about these customers very differently, through letters, through papers, through telephone, rather than through digital touchpoints. So this is a big challenge to serve these customers profitably as well.
And are customers accepting that?
They are. I mean, depending on what they do, their choices are of course to switch to a different provider. You said that you get a lot of incentives to switch to someone else. If insurers don't meet expectations about how they serve their customers, then certainly customers have a lot of choices to go to someone else.
Okay. So, what is the shift in how services are sold, right, and delivered to these varied set of customers?
So I would say that the insurance purchase journey, so that involves both the pre-purchase and post-sale engagement, it's very, very different today than it was a few years ago, and it often involves a variety of touch points. So if you think about it, a consumer rarely buys insurance spontaneously. They start by talking to their friends and family. We know from our consumer technographics data that a lot of them will go to comparison websites to compare prices and providers. A lot of them will also land on insurers' own websites to learn more about them. They can go also to online reviews or check any social media interactions with that company. And once they have done that, they have a variety of options of how they purchase insurance. The UK actually leads in terms of online insurance purchases. So a lot of, I think 51% of online adults, they used their laptop or their desktop computer for their most recent insurance purchase. Of course, we need to bear in mind that customers might want to start their application in just one channel online, but maybe they need some help or reassurance, so they want to continue it in a different channel. And in the UK, 27% of online adults purchased their insurance most recently over the telephone. So you need to think about these channel preferences. And of course, once that's done, there are a lot of other things to consider. How you communicate with these customers, how you streamline this, how you personalize that communication so that 1 year later, customers don't go back to the comparison website to find the cheapest provider, but have some kind of connection and very good association with you and your brand and decide to stay with you, because retention is one way to really succeed in insurance. Customer acquisition costs are very high in insurance.
Yeah, that's true. So how are these CDOs integrating every part of their business to ensure customer gets seamless experience?
That's a very big challenge. Insurance as an industry is particularly siloed, so there are internal divisions along both product lines but also internal functions. So that means, for example, that someone who has a home insurance or car insurance, for an insurer, often they wouldn't have visibility into the fact that it's the same person, because the data might be sitting in different data warehouses. So one of the biggest challenges is establishing that single view of the customer and creating processes that connect these different dots and basically make one customer who wants to be engaged with as a person rather than a policy number. One starting point could be, for example, a customer journey ecosystem mapping workshop, where you bring a cross-functional team, maybe people from product lines, underwriting, customer service, marketing, and what you do is you map the customer's action, their touch points, their emotions, to the insurance ecosystem to see how different parts of the ecosystem affect that customer experience. And that helps you identify any problems, and it also points out basically who and how can deal with any of these problems that emerge throughout the journey. So this is just the first step. After that, of course, you have to engineer your processes, your technology to improve that customer journey.
Okay. So shifting from here, because this is a very regulated industry, right? Are there additional regulatory compliances in insurance which has linked to the digital transformation?
I would say that one thing that has emerged recently is how you use data and how you store customer data. Privacy and security have both become competitive differentiators. We have all these big scandals about customer data leaking out and being used on the black net. So one thing to think about is how you store, how you acquire customer data, and how you of course get permission to use it.
So how are the CDOs responding to these changing regulatory environment?
I think they are worried that, as I said, so many resources will be consumed by regulatory compliance. So a lot of it is about agility and how you meet those requirements without affecting the rest of your enterprise. So this is both about making sure that your processes are agile, that the platforms that you use are agile as well, and that any sort of internal complexity that you have is addressed and basically purely, very, very clearly visible to you, so you know what's happening at all times.
They're very insightful, and I'm sure they're very interesting. So thank you for having you today. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.